the three most terrifying vanishings and what happened next. A story is only as solid as the person telling it. And when that person is the only witness to a disappearance, their words can be the foundation for a tragic accident or a sinister cover-up. Picture this. You're on spring break, watching the sun go down over a perfect tropical beach. 1 second, you and your friend are laughing by the water. The next, a rogue wave crashes over both of you. You claw your way back to the sand, gasping for air, but your friend is gone, pulled into the dark sea. That's the story 22-year-old Joshua Ribe told police. But from the very beginning, his account of what happened to 20-year-old Sadishka Kani was full of terrifying holes. Sometimes, a person just vanishes, and the story we're left with feels incomplete, like a puzzle missing its most important pieces. In some cases, the evidence points right at a suspect. There's no body, no confession, and no real closure. In others, the disappearance is so bizarre, so disconnected from reality, that it leaves everyone grasping at shadows. Today, we're looking at three of the most chilling modern disappearances, cases where the official story feels disturbingly thin and the truth is still buried just out of reach. From a dream vacation that turns into a nightmare, to a mother who disappears leaving only blood behind, to a ghost-like figure who abandons 3 newborn babies over 7 years. These are the stories that defy easy answers and haunt us with one simple, terrifying question: what really happened? The girl who was swept away, the disappearance of Sadishka Kani. Spring break is a rite of passage for American college students. It's a week of freedom, parties, and sunny beaches, a quick escape from exams and classes. For 20-year-old Sadishka Kani, a bright pre-med student at the University of Pittsburgh, a trip to Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic was supposed to be exactly that. In early March 2025, she and 5 of her girlfriends landed at the massive, all-inclusive RU Republica resort, ready for a week of fun. Sadishka was known for her sharp mind and warm heart. She came from a close-knit family in Virginia, and she had her whole life ahead of her. The first few days were a blur of music, laughter, and making new friends. The resort was packed with other students from all over the U.S., all there for the same reason. It was in this lively chaos that Sadishka's group met another group of American students, which included 22-year-old Joshua Stephen Ribe from St. Cloud State University in Minnesota. The two groups started hanging out, sharing drinks and stories under the Caribbean sun, like people do on vacation. Nobody could have guessed that this random meeting would set the stage for a mystery that would hit international news and leave a family completely shattered. The night of March 5th turned into the early morning of March 6th. After hitting a nightclub, Sadishka, some of her friends, and Joshua's group decided to walk down to the beach. It was late, around 4:15 a.m., when resort security cameras caught the group heading toward the dark, moonlit shore. This is the last time anyone definitively saw Sadishka Kani on camera. What happened over the next few hours is a story built almost entirely from the memory of one person, Joshua Ribe. And his story would start to change, shift, and crack under pressure. According to the timeline police put together, most of the group didn't stay on the beach very long. Just before 6 a.m., surveillance footage showed Sadishka's friends walking back to their hotel room. They had left Sadishka and Joshua alone on the beach. At first, this wasn't a big deal. It was spring break. People were pairing off. But as the sun started to come up, a feeling of unease must have started to creep in. It wasn't until hours later, when her friends realized she'd never come back to the room, that real panic set in. Sadishka was officially reported missing 12 hours after she was last seen. Dominican authorities and resort security launched an immediate search. They questioned her friends, who could only say they'd left her with Joshua. The investigation quickly zeroed in on the one person who knew what happened in those missing hours. When investigators finally found Joshua Ribe, he told them a dramatic and, on the surface, believable story. He claimed he and Sadishka decided to go for a swim. He described them wading into the water together, talking and kissing in the waist-deep surf. Then, he said, a huge wave crashed over them out of nowhere, pulling them both into the deeper, rougher water. He recounted a desperate fight against the current. Rybe, who said he had lifeguard training, claimed he tried to get Sadishka back to shore. In one version of his story, he said he pulled her in front of him and helped her until the water was only at their knees. He claimed she was walking, though kind of stumbling in the water. He asked if she was okay, but didn't hear an answer because he started violently throwing up all the seawater he'd swallowed. He said when he finally recovered, he looked around but couldn't see her. Figuring she'd gone back to her room, he fell asleep on a beach bed. Surveillance footage later confirmed he didn't go back to his own hotel room until around 9:30 a.m., more than 5 hours after this supposedly happened. Right from the start, investigators had a problem with Rybe's account. The story just had too many inconsistencies. Why would you just assume she was fine and go to sleep on the beach after something so traumatic? If a wave was strong enough to pull them both under, how did he manage to get them both back to the shallows, only for her to vanish a moment later? And maybe the biggest question of all, why did he wait so long to get help, or even just check on her? His own friend later asked him where Sadishka was, and Rybe just said he thought she'd gone back to her room, only then finding out she never made it. As the search ramped up, with Dominican naval ships and drones scouring the coastline, the story kept changing. An official investigative report from the Dominican Republic noted that Rybe told police he and Sadishka got caught in a big wave, and when he got back to the beach, he threw up and fell asleep, and she was gone when he woke up. In that version, there was no mention of him helping her back to the shallows. The details were fluid, changing every time he told it. Dominican authorities noticed. While they never officially named him a suspect, they detained him as a key witness. They took his passport and confined him to his resort room under police guard, so he couldn't leave the country. To make things even more suspicious, police sources later told ABC News that some of Sadishka's clothes were found on a portable beach bed near where she was last seen. This detail just raised more questions. If she went for a swim, it makes sense she'd leave some clothes behind. But finding them felt ominous, especially with Rybe's shifting story. The case turned into a jurisdictional nightmare. Sadishka was an American citizen who went missing in a foreign country, a situation that's always complicated. The FBI got involved, and the sheriff's office in her home county in Virginia started working with the State Department and Dominican officials. Rybe's parents flew down to the Dominican Republic and hired a lawyer who argued that their son was being held illegally. His legal team claimed he'd been questioned for hours without a proper lawyer or official translators. After almost 2 weeks, a Dominican judge sided with Rybe, ruling his detention was unlawful because he'd been held longer than the 48 hours allowed by Dominican law without being charged with a crime. Although they held on to his passport for a while longer, this was the first step to him going home. He was released from his hotel, and, not long after another hearing, he was able to return to the United States. He has never been charged with any crime related to Sadishka's disappearance. For Sadishka Kani's family, the legal battles were just noise compared to their grief and desperation. They held on to hope, but as days turned into weeks with no sign of their daughter, that hope started to fade. The main theory from Dominican authorities was that Sadishka had tragically drowned. Faced with this horrible conclusion and the low chance of ever finding her, her parents made a heartbreaking choice. On March 17th, they sent a letter to Dominican authorities, asking that their daughter be declared legally dead. It was an admission of the grim reality they were facing, the first step in a grieving process that would never have an ending. To this day, Sadishka Kani has not been found. Her case is still open, a file filled with conflicting stories and unanswered questions. Was she the victim of a horrible accident, a freak wave that took her life while her companion was too out of it to save her? Or is there a darker truth hiding in the inconsistencies of Joshua Rive's story? His narrative, the only one we have, feels like a mirage, shimmering with details that seem to change the closer you get. The doubt hangs there, a heavy shadow over the beautiful beaches of Punta Cana. The story of what happened to Sadishka Kani vanished right along with her, leaving her family with nothing but the haunting echo of a single, unreliable voice. The mother who never came home. The case of Ashley Elkins. For a mother with two young boys, routine is everything. It's the rhythm of daily life, the school runs, the errands, the meals, that keeps everything stable and secure. For 30-year-old Ashley Elkins, a hairstylist from Warren, Michigan, Thursday, January 2nd, 2025, started just like any other day. She told her family she was heading out to run some errands. It was a simple, normal statement, the kind of thing you say 1,000 times without thinking twice. But this time was different. Ashley Elkins would never come home. When Ashley didn't come back and wasn't answering her phone, her family's worry quickly turned to alarm. It was completely out of character for her to just disappear, especially with her two sons, aged 7 and 10, at home waiting for her. The next day, January 3rd, they reported her missing to the Warren Police Department, and an investigation began. The first crucial clue investigators found was the last known location of her cell phone. It had pinged at an apartment complex in the nearby city of Roseville. This wasn't a random spot. The apartment belonged to her 32-year-old ex-boyfriend, DeAndre Howard Booker. This immediately put him at the center of the investigation. The relationship between Ashley and Booker was reportedly complicated, and her family had been suspicious of him from the second she went missing. When police questioned Booker, he wasn't exactly helpful. He was initially charged with lying to police after he allegedly gave them false information about where he was and what happened to Ashley's car. Investigators had video evidence that directly contradicted what he was saying. That first lie was a huge red flag. It was clear he had something to hide. But the case was about to get a whole lot darker. On January 7th, for days after she was reported missing, Ashley's car was found abandoned in Roseville, about 4 miles from Booker's apartment. Finding the car was a big break, but what police found at Booker's place was even more disturbing. While searching his apartment, investigators found clues in a dumpster that pointed to foul play. Though they didn't release the details at first, the evidence was enough for them to believe that Ashley had been killed. Her family's worst fears were becoming a reality. Her uncle, Maurice Morton, later told reporters a chilling thing her mother had said. He threw her out with the trash. The evidence from the dumpster led investigators to a grim and massive task: a large-scale search of the Pine Tree Acres landfill in Lenox Township. For 7 days, from January 13th to the 19th, dozens of officers and volunteers systematically dug through thousands of tons of garbage in freezing cold weather, looking for any sign of Ashley. They found what they described as look-alike items that might have belonged to her, but nothing conclusive. The landfill search, a huge and emotionally draining effort, ended without finding Ashley's body. While the search for Ashley was hitting a dead end, the case against DeAndre Booker was getting stronger. On January 31st, the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office announced a list of new, horrifying charges against him: first-degree premeditated murder, tampering with evidence, mutilation of a corpse, and concealing a death. The reason they could bring such serious charges, especially murder without a body, was DNA. Roseville Police Detective Sergeant Anthony Karachi stated in court that a substantial amount of blood had been found in the bathroom of Booker's apartment, and DNA tests confirmed it was Ashley Elkins's. This was the smoking gun. Prosecutors now allege that on January 2nd, Ashley went to Booker's apartment, where he killed her and then got rid of her body. Their investigation into what he did after she disappeared revealed a deeply disturbing pattern. After Ashley went missing, Booker had traveled to Flint. His internet search history from that time was bone-chilling. He had looked up the fastest routes to Ohio, what to do when you're on the run, how to beat a polygraph test, and, most damningly, if blood is traceable. This digital trail painted a pretty clear picture of a man trying to cover his tracks. His lawyers claimed that he wasn't a flight risk, didn't really hold up against his own Google searches. Despite all the circumstantial evidence, the case is a huge challenge for prosecutors. Without a body, getting a murder conviction is notoriously hard. The legal process has been slow, partly because of what the prosecution called a massive amount of evidence, around 2 terabytes of digital information. One legal analyst, not connected to the case, said that prosecutors will have to painstakingly build their argument from A to Z. For Ashley's family, this is a long and painful road. Her mother, Monica Elkins, has been a constant presence, her grief obvious. In one heart-wrenching statement, she said, "It won't really be justice without a body for me. You know, him going to prison and not getting out is good, but me not being able to bury her, that's hard for me." The community has rallied around the family, holding candlelight vigils and setting up a GoFundMe to support Ashley's 2 young sons, who now have to grow up without their mother. The investigation also looked into whether anyone else was involved. Police did investigate a second woman who was seen on video with Booker after Ashley disappeared, but they concluded she didn't know anything about the crime. They believe Booker acted alone. The case of Ashley Elkins is a tragic story about the devastating reality of domestic violence and the nightmare of a no-body homicide. The evidence all points to a violent end to her life, with her ex-boyfriend at the center of it. And yet, the final, most crucial piece of the puzzle, Ashley herself, is still missing. Her family is left in a state of suspended grief, caught between the near certainty of her death and the fading hope for a miracle. They want justice, but more than anything, they just want to bring Ashley home. Until she's found, her story remains hauntingly incomplete, a reminder that even when you think you know who's responsible, the answers can stay buried, leaving wounds that may never heal. The Ghost of East London, the abandoned siblings. In a massive, sprawling city like London, it's easy for people to fall through the cracks. But for a newborn baby to be left all alone, exposed to the weather, is so rare and shocking it sends a jolt through the whole community. Now, imagine it happening not once, not twice, but 3 times over 7 years in the same small corner of the city. And then imagine the biggest shock of all. The babies are all brothers and sisters, born to the same unknown mother. This is the baffling and heartbreaking mystery of the abandoned siblings of East London. The story starts on a Sunday morning in September 2017. In a park in Plaistow, part of the borough of Newham, a baby boy was found. He was a newborn, wrapped carefully in a white blanket and left for someone to find. Thankfully, he was unharmed. Hospital staff gave him the temporary name Harry. Police launched a huge investigation, but with no leads and no witnesses, the trail went cold. Who would abandon their child like that? And why? The questions just hung in the air. Harry was eventually adopted, and life in Newham went on. 17 months later, it happened again. On the night of January 31st, 2019, someone walking their dog in a small playground on Roman Road, just a few minutes from where Harry was found, discovered another newborn. This time it was a baby girl, wrapped in a towel and put in a shopping bag next to a park bench. It was a freezing cold night, with snow on the ground. Her survival was a small miracle. She was given the name Roman. Again, police launched a full investigation, pleading with the public for any information about the mother, saying they were worried about her. But just like with Harry, the search went nowhere. The parents' identities remained a total mystery. Roman, like her brother, was placed into care and eventually adopted. 2 abandoned babies in the same small area of East London was a deeply disturbing coincidence. But what happened next turned the case from a series of sad, separate events into one of the most perplexing mysteries in modern British history. On the evening of January 18, 2024, almost 5 years after Roman was found, a dog walker made another shocking discovery. At a street corner in East Ham, again within the same small area, there was a shopping bag. Inside, wrapped in a towel against the sub-zero temperatures, was another newborn baby girl. Police estimated she was less than an hour old. The person who found her kept her warm with blankets until help arrived. At the hospital, she was given the name Elsa, a nod to the movie Frozen because of the freezing cold she was found in. This third discovery triggered a massive police response. They reissued public appeals, watched hundreds of hours of CCTV footage, and even identified a woman in a dark coat carrying a rucksack who was seen in the area just before Elsa was found. But the most important part of the investigation was happening in a DNA lab. Given the incredible similarities between the three cases, the locations, the way they were left, investigators had to know if they were connected. The results, presented to the East London Family Court, were stunning. DNA tests confirmed that baby Elsa, baby Harry, and baby Roman were full siblings. They all had the same mother and father. For 7 years, a single, unknown mother had given birth to 3 children and abandoned each of them, as newborns, in public places in the middle of winter. The news, which a judge allowed to be made public in June 2024 because of the huge public interest, was described by the lead investigator as wholly unprecedented. This revelation only deepened the mystery. The police now had a full DNA profile of the mother, a powerful tool. And yet, when they ran it through the National DNA Database, they got no matches. This means she's likely never been in trouble with the law. She was a ghost, leaving behind only the most intimate biological trace of herself. The focus of the investigation has changed. At first, police assumed the mother was able to come forward, but was choosing not to. Now, the lead detective believes it's more likely she is unable to come forward, that she's being controlled, coerced, or is suffering from such severe mental or physical health problems that she can't get help. They're now treating her as a potential victim who needs support. This theory makes some sense, especially given the care with which the babies were left. They were wrapped warmly and placed where they were likely to be found quickly. It feels like a desperate act, not a malicious one. The search for the parents has become incredibly focused. Police believe the mother must know the area intimately, since she managed to avoid being seen on CCTV 3 separate times. Using complex analysis, investigators have narrowed down their search to just 400 houses in a specific part of East Ham and Plaistow. They think the mother could have walked from one of these homes to abandon each baby without being seen. In May 2025, officers began going door-to-door in this area, talking to residents and asking for voluntary DNA samples to see if they can find a relative of the children's mother. A reward of over $24,000 has also been offered for information. The psychological questions at the heart of this are profound. What could lead a woman to repeat such a desperate act 3 times? Theories range from concealed pregnancies and an abusive partner to severe mental illness like postpartum psychosis or just a deep-seated fear of authorities. The fact that she has stayed hidden for so long, despite all the media attention and the massive police search, is astonishing. Police have even said they cannot discount the possibility of a 4th baby being found in the future, a chilling thought that shows just how urgent it is to find the mother. As for the children, their story is one of tragedy but also hope. Harry and Roman have been adopted into loving families. Baby Elsa, who is now over a year old, is described as a happy, thriving toddler who has taken her first steps and is hitting all her developmental milestones. The courts have ruled that as they get older, the siblings will be told about each other and arrangements will be made for them to have some contact. They will know they are not alone. The case of the abandoned siblings is a story of incredible sadness, but also incredible resilience. It's a modern mystery that plays on our deepest fears about vulnerability and protection. Somewhere in the bustling streets of East London lives a woman who is a mother to 3 children she has never known, a woman who holds the key to this entire, heartbreaking puzzle. Until she is found, Her ghost will continue to haunt the parks and streets of Newham, a silent reminder of a story we may never fully understand. These three cases, though so different, all share a common thread of deep, unsettling mystery. The questions they raise stick with you long after the headlines are gone. What do you think really happened on that beach in Punta Cana? What could possibly explain the 7-year mystery of the abandoned siblings in London? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Talking about these stories helps keep the search for answers alive. A person isn't a magic trick. They can't just vanish into thin air. When someone disappears, there is always a reason, a story, a series of events that led to them being gone. But as we've seen in the cases of Sadishka Kani, Ashley Elkins, and the London siblings, sometimes that story is hidden, buried under lies, violence, or a wall of silence. We're left with just fragments, a shaky witness account of a rogue wave, a trail of blood in an ex-boyfriend's apartment, and 3 newborn babies left in the cold. These pieces form a chilling picture of unresolved tragedy. The real fear in these stories comes from the unknown. It's the gap between the facts we have and the truth we don't. And in that gap, our worst imaginations can run wild. It's where we face the terrifying reality that justice isn't always possible, closure isn't always an option, and sometimes, the most important questions are the ones that never get answered. For the families involved, this uncertainty is its own special kind of hell, a life sentence of what if. And for the rest of us, these stories are a stark reminder that even in our modern world of cameras and constant connection, a person can still be erased, leaving behind nothing but a haunting, permanent mystery.